Hi, I'm Lauryn Longoria, and this is My Story Matters. I'm currently in my last semester at Vanguard University, and I'll be graduating in December with a bachelor's in psychology. And currently, I'm teaching right now. I'm an assistant teacher, but in December, I'll also receive my teacher's permit to be a full time teacher. A little bit about myself. I'm originally from Gilroy, California, which is known as the garlic capital of the world. I moved there when I was in the fourth grade, and I would say that year is when my family started to consistently go to church. I wasn't raised or attended church at a young age. It kind of just happened later on in my younger years, I guess. So the fourth grade is when I consistently started to attend and got plugged into a church family, and that's where I met my children's pastor, who is still a big person in my life today. I still go visit home and make time to come see her, and she has just been probably one of the people that have seen me grown since I was like 9 years old till right now. So I still keep in touch with her, and she has been such a blessing in my life. I think that she really introduced me to who God was and just really expressed the love of God, and I really felt super safe with her, and I think that she's just probably one of the biggest mentors in my life, and that kind of just sparked a need or a want for a relationship with God. I saw children and other people that I was meeting, and they knew of this God and this love, and I was like, went to my first summer camp, and I was like, what? A relationship with God, like a love of God, like what is that? And so I would say like the second summer camp that I went to is when I accepted God into my life, and because I just wanted to know, like, what is this love of God? What is this safety net? Like, who is he? And why does everyone have a relationship with him? And so I would say that was a big change in my life, where it sparked this need, this want. And after that, I just started falling in love with worship, falling in love with the teaching, falling in love with just wanting to get to know God. And then I would say probably 8th grade is when I got baptized. And then high school was always difficult because I felt like I was diving deeper into my relationship with God and what my values were and trying to figure out this purpose in life. And that was always a big struggle of like, who am I with God, and what does God want me to do and serve in this world? And that was always something that I felt like everybody had figured out except for me. And so I think I struggled a lot in high school with feeling like I needed to know what my purpose was, but also being friends with people who maybe didn't have the same morals or the same values of me. So it felt like a tug of war of I was becoming this new person in faith while my friends were confused, or they joked around about it or made fun of it, but I just wanted to love on them still and, like, let them know I wasn't judging them. But so high school was a struggle, and I really just wanted to know, like, what is my calling? What are my gifts? That's when I felt like everybody had that figured out in church, and I didn't. I was never, like, a leader or involved in school, so I, like, kind of crossed that off of my list of, okay, it's not leadership, it's not speaking, I can't even, I have a speech impediment, so I can't even speak in front of the public, but it became like a big prayer of mine, like sophomore, junior year of high school. And that's when I just started writing. I started writing spoken word, and I started doing like short sermon in the church. And my church began to give me opportunities back home. And I realized that writing was a big way where I connected to God. And it wasn't necessarily like trying to reach a target audience or speak and try to relate to as many people as I can within the congregation. It was more so, what is God telling me? And it applied to my life, like either that week or that year or the next year. It was like writing spoken word and sermons were something where I felt like I can connect with God and have him speak to me. So that kind of happened throughout high school and stuff, and I kind of figured like I felt this love of ministry, but I just didn't know where God was placing me in ministry. So then I graduated high school, and then I attended Vanguard University. And I just felt called to this campus. I was like, it's super small. It's a first time going to private school. This should be interesting. But I actually fell in love with it, and I became an RA my sophomore year of college here. So I was kind of like, whoa, like leadership kind of just happened all of a sudden, and it wasn't something that I planned or anything, but I just applied to it on a whim and started falling in love with the job description and everything. But I would say leading up to that first year RA was, the summer before was tough. Every year my town has a garlic festival, and it's a big worldwide thing, I guess you would say, where people fly and come into Gilroy to do this festival. And I was actually a garlic princess, so I was walking around the festival like 24/7 all 3 days. And so in the summer of 2019 is when I was actually a part of the Gilroy Garlic Festival mass shooting, and I would say that was quite the turning point in my walk with God. That was somewhere where it really felt almost like a setback, where I felt like, wow, I've been on this high with God. I got the RA position. I know I want to go into ministry. I know what I'm going to do. It's leadership. And then it was like, then I get hit with, this tragic event, and it was very traumatizing. And there was days right after that where I couldn't eat, sleep, talk to anybody. And I was just home. And the thing about that was the next week I had to come down back to Vanguard because it was the summer, and I had to come to campus early to train to be an RA. And so in my mind, I was like, I can't even talk to my parents. Like, I can't even talk to people that I love. How am I supposed to minister to residents who are coming onto campus for the first time? How am I supposed to connect to a team, to a boss? How am I supposed to relate to anybody when I'm going through such a traumatic experience, and trying to figure out healing and trying to figure out where I was at God? Because there was a lot of questions of, why did God allow this, and why was I so close to it, and why was I alone, and why did it happen to people that I love, and why it had to happen to my hometown, where I struggled with wanting to go back consistently after that. And after that, I was just like, okay, obviously I need to do some real work here. I started to go to therapy, and then with that, it was like I feel like God-centered, and I didn't see myself healing without putting God in the center of the situation. And I just, as much as it took a lot to say, like, trust God and don't fear, because trust God. And that's like the last thing you want to hear when you're going through grieving and going through death experience. You don't want to hear just trust God. He's going to be faithful through it, or just lean on him or surrender it to him. I didn't want to say that. I didn't want to do that because it didn't make sense to do that. But once I started working on myself and seeing where God was in that situation, that he kept me safe, that at the end of the day, he brought me back to my parents, and that at the end of the day, that I was still able to pray over people who were running with me. And the fact that that was the only thing I can do was, when we were going through that, was crazy, because that's the only thing I knew what to do, was just to pray over people, because I thought, this is the last time. This is the last time I will see these people. And so the only thing I thought to do was to pray. And so for God to even give me the courage to do that, and to just I had to see where God was in the situation and where God was after the situation. So it took a lot of work the week and 2 weeks leading up to coming back to campus, but I still made the decision because I still felt called to this RA role. I still felt like, okay, maybe I should be back at Vanguard, even though I really wanted to take a gap semester and just chill out for a second. But I'm really glad I made the decision to come back, because I was surrounded by such a great boss and such a great team. They really loved on me and allowed me to feel what I was feeling, allowed me to cry at the random times where I felt triggered or felt like just those emotions were heightened or something. Like, they really just allowed me to do that and then be vulnerable too with them. And my boss, Pi, was just so great. And so I felt like I made that right decision to come back and be an RA, because I was learning that in leadership, you don't have to have this perfect life. Like, you don't have to have this perfect ministry and this perfect testimony. Like, it's okay to feel like your life's in shambles as long as you're allowing yourself to walk with God through it. And I'd say that year I met so many great residents. I was allowed to connect with them, and I'm still really close to like a lot of my residents from that year, and I just really saw God in the middle of that. So I would say that is probably one of my biggest parts of my testimony, because it's so recent, and I feel like I've really, the last couple years, have grown and matured with God, and learned how to be vulnerable with God and with people, and to trust in God. And yeah, there's been consistent times where I'm like, trust in God again? Like, how many times am I gonna have to trust in God? Like, obviously there's, pandemic going on, there's people, that I love passing away, and it's just like, it's hard to say that, but then at the end of the day, that's the only thing you could say. And so, and I'm at a place right now where I did not see myself a year ago, 2 years ago. I currently work at a church part-time as an elementary coordinator, kind of being that person that my children's pastor was to me, and getting to pour into kids' lives and showing them the love of God. And I think it's just so funny how God works in that way, where I was so influenced at such a young age to know the love of God, and now I'm doing that with elementary students on Sundays, and working with kids like 6 days a week, and just getting to really love on them, and I feel like they're being supported and being that rock, because really childhood is where it starts. Like, childhood is where you get to know God, and the need and the want becomes personal, and it's not just like my parents are bringing me to church. It's like the children are coming back every Sunday because they want to come back. So that's currently where I'm at right now, and I'm applying to grad school because I want to get my MFT in counseling to do marriage and family therapy. And my goal with that is to do marriage and family therapy for leaders and pastors within the church, because I feel like that's just like a calling of mine, and I feel like, pastors need it. They are like therapists themselves, and leaders need it, and it's okay to need it. And so that is my long-term goal, and as long as working with people with trauma. So I'm just really glad that God has been faithful. He has really revealed myself to me. He's given me a confidence in him, and he's allowed me to walk in authority with him. And coming from a shy 4th grade timid little girl who didn't know God to being the person I am today, all happened with mentors, with God, and with just it just shocks me a lot to see like the little girl I was, and then who I am today. And even my sophomore year of college, like just going through what I went through, I'm just really thankful that God has really had I told you, speech impediment. God has had his hand over my life, and slowly reveals himself. And I go through trials and tribulations here and there, and so I just really have to learn to lean on God and give it to God. And that's like the one thing you don't want to hear, but you just have to do it, because there's no other option. I can't give it to myself. I can't solve these problems alone. So that is my story, and thank you guys for allowing me to share just a little bit about myself, and yeah.